Welcome to the Goal Podcast, the podcast for serious soccer players and their supporters to help further their development and navigate their way throughout their soccer career.
Welcome in to a new episode of New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast. I'm Matt Doherty. I'm hosting today, role reversal. I got Matt Langone and Mike C alongside me today. Guys, how are you?
Good. Doing good, Matt's coming from parts unknown here, so we'll see how this goes. All in our own location.
It's going to go great. We have lots to talk about today. We're going to do a NEPSAC boys and girls tournament preview. Regular season is winding down, brackets coming out this weekend, and then we have the tournament starting Wednesday. So I want to ask you guys questions. Let's have a nice discussion here and break down what to expect next week, right? We got 1 week to decide everything. So it's certainly an exciting time of the year, huh?
Yeah, as Mike and I know, it's a crazy sprint. The brackets will be out this weekend, quarterfinals next Wednesday, semis next Saturday, and then championships on Sunday. So it's always crazy to me when the season ends, because it feels like we were just doing our preseason podcast and kind of forecasting the season. So it really does go by fast.
Going, so fast, for the media. Imagine what it's like for the players.
Like right.
One day you're in preseason, the next day you're looking at, this might be the last one.
And NEPSAC too, right? Everything, like the playoffs happen so quick. It's like, you start on a Wednesday, you're going to end on a Sunday. The last stretch just goes by in a blink. So for you, Mike, I'll start with you. We'll do a little Class A girls to start, but heading into the final weekend of the regular season, looking at the playoffs, like what are kind of your big takeaways from the last few weeks since we last talked, and sort of your temperature about certain teams heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot this week. There is one match day left, and teams will play either Friday or Saturday. So it's kind of a last chance to add to that resume. But I think what we have in Class A, when you're looking at the projected 18 field, is you have 4 tiers. And I think that's the way I'm most comfortable describing it. And, the top tier, you have Miss Porters, the Founders League champion, at 15-1-1, and Loomis Chaffee at 14-1. Those two teams played at midseason. Miss Porters took a 1-0 win. So that, in my book, and again, I'm not on the selection committee, I don't follow their formulas to the letter. It's just mostly results, strength of schedule, eye test. I would give Miss Porters a slight edge for the number 1 seed and slot in Loomis Chaffee at number 2. Beyond that, going down to our second tier, there's 3 teams I like that have had very strong seasons and are all kind of gaining momentum right now. And that's Choate, 10-1-4, Buckingham Brown and Nichols, 10-3-3 after losing their first 2 games of the season, and Worcester Academy, 11-2-4, a little bit of a midseason blip for the Hilltoppers, but they've won 3 on the spin now, all by shutout, and they're looking to be pretty formidable. Tier 3 is just Westminster. That's it. I don't think they've had 3 losses. They're 11-3-1. The 3 losses all came to the teams above them in the Founders League. So that's that's Choate, Miss Porters, and Loomis. They've beaten everyone else on the schedule except for 1 tie. They're on an 8-game win streak. I like them as my tier 3 team and number 6 seed. And here is where it gets really interesting. And I think this is what the intrigue is for this weekend. For Class A tournament selections. I've got 3 teams for 2 spots. And this is just, conversations with the coaches, head-to-head records, all kinds of stuff. I broke out the notepads, colored pencils. I'm crediting, strong wins, losses, ties, whatever. And these 3 teams I think are really close. And that is Austin Prep, which is a relative newcomer to the NEPSAC. They just first started competing in the NEPSAC in 2022.
Right.
They're 14-2-4. That's a lot of wins. They have a win over BB&N. And they also have a lot of wins over some weaker Class B, C, and even D teams. So we'll see, how that's regarded. Joining them in that tier is Milton Academy at 9-3-3. You could definitely make a case that they're the second best team in the ISL. They have a win over Worcester Academy, but also a couple dodgy losses. So we'll see what happens there. And then the third team in that tier is Phillips Andover, 10-4-3. Their best wins, I got them down as Pingree Nobles and Lawrence Academy. They play their rival Phillips Exeter on Saturday. They win there, they'll take their chances. But I'd expect 2 of those 3 teams to round out the Class A field. And unfortunately, one of them is going to get left out.
What do you think's going to decide that? If you had to pick, happens this weekend, or sort of like you mentioned, Austin Prep, maybe too many wins against lower class opponents. Is that something that could hold them out? Like, what do you feel like would be the deciding factor?
Yeah, that's a great question, because again, I don't know exactly what's going to go on with the selection committee, if they're going to value wins more than I do as just a media member. Each team has one game remaining. So Andover has Exeter. Milton has Nobles. That would be a chance to get another, pretty strong win. Nobles has a good team. And Austin Prep takes on St. Paul's, and I'd expect them to take care of business there. So, the honest answer is I don't know which way it's going to fall. I think these are three teams that are very comparable in terms of quality wins, losses, stuff like that. So it would not shock me, to see any of the two selected.
Interesting. Makes for an exciting weekend.
Yeah, sure does.
So you think the top six, those are locks?
I don't never want to say locks. I mean, just, conversations you have. And
yeah,
I mean, I think the top five are locks. I think Westminster deserves that sixth spot based on what I've seen from them this season. But you never know until Saturday night, Sunday morning, the brackets come out, and then we'll know for sure.
Yeah. One more question. We'll get to Class A boys soon, but I'm curious, like you mentioned, Miss Porter's, Loomis, like they're kind of in that top tier. If you're looking at outside of that tier, a team that could potentially go on a run, maybe play for the championship, like what's the first team that comes to your mind, kind of in that 3 to 6, or even you can extend to that 3 to 8 range, that is peaking at the right time, playing good soccer, and a team that you could see maybe upsetting someone in the first round and making a little run?
Yeah, I'm not sure I see any teams beyond the top 5 going all the way. I think you got, your favorites, Miss Porter's and Loomis Chaffee, and then your next tier of teams, Choate, BB&N, and Worcester, I think are good enough to put together 3 strong performances, win 3 straight games. Worcester's did it last year. BB&N has done it a number of times. Choate seems like the only heavyweight year in, year out that hasn't put that run together in recent years. So, I like the Founders League this year. I think it's very strong. I think Choate is a legit candidate to push through. But any of those top 5, I think, are quality choices to win the title in Class A.
And one of them is going to lose first round, right?
There you go. Yep.
That some good matchups, 4 or 5, 3-6 matchups are going to be fun to watch. All right, Matt Langone, boys side, what's going on in the Class A heading into this weekend and looking ahead to the quarterfinals? Is it like Mike Z? Like, do you have some tiers of teams that you feel like? I know Taft has kind of been at the top all year, but I assume they're your top tier. Like, give me the lowdown behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable what Taft has done, if you think about it. I mean, they've been wire to wire the number 1 team in our NEPSAC rankings. Tongue twister there for I don't know what reason, but I'll blame it on parts unknown. But Taft has been incredible. 29 match unbeaten streak right now. They haven't lost since October 9th of 2024. The conventional wisdom coming in was that, obviously it's super hard to repeat in the NEPSAC. It's super hard to reload. But Taft has done an incredible job. And what's more incredible about it is the fact that the team is doing it in the Founders League, which has been, like Mike said, on the girls' side, it's been that way on the boys' side as well. It's just so deep. I think we have 5 Founders League teams in our most recent boys' top 10 power rankings. So it's a great league. So for Taft to be undefeated going into the finale on Saturday against Hotchkiss, I think that number 1 seed is pretty much locked up. I would even say win or lose. I mean, if they have a hiccup, I think they've still been the best, most consistent team all season. They look locked for that top seed in Class A. And then after that, it's there's definite tiers. Like Mike said on the girls' side, the same thing is true on the boys' side. I think Noble and Greeno is the team you have to look to as maybe the number 2 seed in Class A. Also remarkable what they've done this year to move up from Class B to Class A and really separate themselves as one of the top teams in Class A. They've already clinched the Independent School League Championship. So based on that and a 15-1-1 record, I believe overall, I mean, they would presumably be the number 2 seed in Class A. Well earned. And then the other team that I've really been
Taft.
Yep.
Sorry to cut you off, but Noble's only lost to Taft too.
Right. Noble's only lost to Taft, and that was on a neutral site at the Next Level Invitational back in September in Albany. So, also an incredible resume. And then the third team that I've been maybe the most impressed with down the stretch is another Founders League team, Avon Old Farms, which might be outside of Taft the hottest team in the NEPSAC. They're the only opponent of Taft to not lose to Taft. They got a tie a few weeks back, and they've been playing really well lately. Have kind of elevated themselves into that top 3, top 4 status. Northfield Mount Herman's another team that's right in there. And the flip side is, I guess, the team that I've really been watching that's kind of gone the other way, shockingly, is Loomis Chaffee, which looked unbeatable for stretches during the season. You know, their only loss up until the last couple of weeks was to Woodstock Academy, which is a non-NEPSAC school, and it was at a neutral site at the Invitational in Albany. And Loomis looked really, in talking to coaches, it was kind of like Taft and Loomis were 1A and 1B for a long time. And now Loomis has hit a lot of roadblocks, and I think it lost 4 straight. They just lost to Choate yesterday, which was a big loss for positioning. Choate kind of probably really helped Choate's cause. I can't imagine a scenario where Loomis is left out of Class A, but it's incredible that we're having the conversation where they were probably a top 2 seed for weeks.
Yeah.
And now it's like, man, what are they going to be now? Like a 6 or a 7? And then they come into that territory where Loomis is now the team. Oh man, nobody wants to play them in the quarterfinal. No 1 or 2 seed wants to have to play a team as talented as Loomis in a quarterfinal matchup. So now kind of the outlook of the bracket has really been shifted, where you're going to have a top-notch team like Loomis probably in the bottom half of the bracket. And that could really disrupt things because, let's say, Taft gets to that 1 seed and then somehow, or Nobles gets that 2 seed. Now you're going to play Loomis in the quarterfinal. That's not an appealing first round quarterfinal matchup.
Yeah. You wrote a good story today on six teams that kind of need a win this weekend to help their chances. And I'm curious, Mike mentioned kind of that 3 for 2 for the last couple spots. Is there a similar situation on the boys side? Like, those last few spots, if you're saying Loomis is going to get in, like, who are kind of the teams on the bubble right now and sort of what needs to happen this weekend for those teams to get in? I know Hotchkiss is playing Taft. That's obviously a great opportunity to get a resume boosting win, but what are you kind of looking at on Saturday on the final match day for teams that could play their way into the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. I think you actually could be looking at up to 6 teams vying for those final 2 spots. I think the top 6 is probably safe. I mean, when you're looking at Taft, Northfield, Mount Herman, Nobles, Avon, Milton Academy, Choate, I would think they're all probably in. But then you get to the tricky part. We have Belmont Hill, you have Loomis, you have Hotchkiss, you have Berkshire, and still has a possibility. I think Buckingham, Brown, and Nichols has caught fire as of late. All of a sudden, they're back in the conversation. The really interesting one is Greenwich Country Day, which is a school a program that we haven't necessarily been paying a ton of attention to, but all of a sudden they're 13-4-0. They have to play in their league tournament today and Saturday. They have a Fairchester Athletic Association semifinal game today that they're hosting against St. Luke's. So you would think they'd have to win that today. They'd have to win the league final on Saturday, and they'd probably have to get some help. But it's funny because that's a team that we really haven't been paying a ton of attention to, for better or for worse. Probably a mistake on my end to not be giving them their flowers throughout the season. But that's a team that's right in the mix all of a sudden. And, a win, a couple key losses. I would think if Hotchkiss, like you mentioned, Matt, if Hotchkiss beats Taft on Saturday and becomes the only team, if they're now the only team to beat Taft, you've got to put Hotchkiss in. I can't imagine a world where Hotchkiss is left out if they beat Taft. If they tie Taft, maybe they still get in. If they lose to Taft, it might be difficult. I think BBN has a lot to play for this weekend. They need a win over Lawrence Academy in a bad way to keep their hopes alive. And then, I'll come back to them again. The other team that I was really high on coming into the season, but has been really hurt by inconsistencies, is Berkshire, which I think top to bottom, 4 Division I commits on that team, top to bottom might be the most one of the most talented teams. I mean, maybe you say they're top heavy, they got really high end top talent. Maybe it drops off on the roster a little bit, but Berkshire is another team that if it gets a win in its finale, it ends up with 10 wins on the season. And then maybe you're having a conversation about them, and then it becomes another thing like Loomis. Like now all of a sudden, what if Loomis is the 7 seed and Berkshire is the 8 seed? And you got two teams who started the year in our preseason top 3 who have a ton of talent and are super scary opponents. And you could have like a Taft Berkshire matchup, a Taft Loomis matchup, a Nobles Berkshire, a Nobles Loomis. It could be a crazy opening day of the tournament, the quarterfinals, if those super talented teams get in.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at the quarterfinals, semifinals, like I assume Taft is your favorite, but if not Taft, like who could beat them? You know, who do you feel like is the prime challenger to them in Class A?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like you said, has to be Taft coming in. There's no real other way to think otherwise. Defending champs, undefeated, 29-game win streak, or 29-game unbeaten streak. They have to be the favorites. I would say with familiarity, maybe Avon is a team you're really going to watch out for because it's already played Taft. It's already proven that it can compete with Taft for the tie. Northfield Mount Herman's another team that's quietly produced a really good resume. Seemed to have gotten better as the season went on. And I wouldn't rule out Milton Academy, although, you know, it's been kind of a unique season for Milton. They were the runner-up in Class A last year. They won the thing 2 years ago. They haven't been maybe as consistent or good this year as they've been in years past. But I watched them, you know, a couple times this year. And when Milton is on, their passing combinations, their ability to dictate the tempo of the game and kind of control possession is as good as anyone in New England. So I wouldn't rule out, and of course the experience. I mean, Chris Kane, the head coach, he's been there numerous times. So Milton is another team I would never count out, although they had a tough loss on yesterday against Brooks, which was actually a big game. We'll get into that when we start talking about Class B, but Brooks, that was a big win for their playoff resume, and kind of not necessarily a great sign for Milton to lose that game up the road. But, you know, those late season ISL matchups, they're always tough.
Yeah. Before we get to Class B, I have one more question for both of you. It's Sunday morning, brackets are out. What's the first round matchup that you want to see, that you would be so excited to cover on Wednesday? I want one from each of you.
Mike?
Yeah. It seems like they always face off at some point in the Class A tournament. It's been the case, I think, in each of the last 3 years, maybe. But if we look at a 4 and 5 game between BB&N and Worcester Academy, I think that's the must see stream or coverage game. You know, in the quarterfinals, that would be a good one.
Good answer.
I would say on the boys' end, it's really dependent on where Loomis ends up, because wherever Loomis ends up, that's the quarterfinal matchup I'm taking a look at, because that team is just really potent, really talented. I would think because of their late season struggles, they won't be seeded any higher than 6th. They'll probably be a 6, 7, or 8, unless they get a lot of respect from the committee by being like, we know they're talented, we know they're really good. We're not going to see, like, you know, who knows what happens. But I think whoever Loomis plays, whether it's Loomis Taft, Loomis Nobles, Loomis Avon, Loomis Northfield, that's the matchup I'm looking for, because it's going to be a game between two teams that can easily win the whole thing.
All right, let's go over to Class B. Mike, we'll start on the girls' side, and I know you've written a lot about Dexter this year, but can you kind of just talk about the season that they've had and sort of where you feel they are heading into the postseason, presumably the top seed, right?
Yeah, I think Class B, a little unlike Class A, there is a clear favorite and, you know, a clear number 1 seed. You know, Dexter Southfield heads into the weekend. Actually, I think they played Friday. They played Governors on Friday. But they're 12-0-4. They're the only Class A or B team in New England that has not lost this season. They won Class B last year. They had a great team, beat Pingree in the final, and just basically picked up where they left off. They beat BB&N early in the season. They've got some other strong performances, some quality wins. They're a very complete team. I mean, you know, right from their goalie and Jeff Marino all the way through the defense, midfield, and up front. They're definitely the most complete team in Class B. I have no problem calling them the favorite. Not that it's going to be handed to them. They're still going to have to win 3 games, and at least a couple of them are going to be probably potentially tough games. But yeah, there's your number one heading into the Class B tournament, Dexter Southfield.
And who are the top challengers, would you say?
Yeah, and then it's a little bit of a free for all.
You know,
In terms of I can't even say with confidence, this should be your number 2, number 3 seed. I think you got your ISL teams. You got Brooks at 8, 3, and 6 in a little bit of a rough patch, but still did some very good work early on and will be part of the field. You got Lawrence Academy, great bounce back season. They finished tied for last in the ISL last year. And this year they're up to 10, 2, and 4. They're definitely gone dancing. Julian Millward, one of their players, Sacred Heart commit, having a great season. And the other ISL team I expect to be part of the field is St. George's at 9, 3, and 3. And I think we touched on her in the last podcast, the midseason one, freshman, Caden Kadri, 17 goals as a freshman, a 9th grader from St. George's. And they've got some other good players. So I'm guessing they're in the field as well. Beyond that, Pingree has played in every Class B final going back to 2019.
that's insane.
They're 12, 3, and 2, and whether it's under, Doc Simpson or Jackie Hughes, they always, put together a team that seems to be peaking as the tournament comes around. They're going to be a tough out no matter who they play. And then a shout out to a couple newcomers that I expect to see in the Class B field from out west. Ethel Walker at 11 and 5. That was a Class C semifinal team last year, made the jump up to Class B. They've got some good talent. Janelyn Weber, Gigi Pena offensively, Caroline Hayes on defense. They'll be in the field. And the other one is Williston Northampton, which has put together a really solid season at 11, 4, and 3. Those two teams actually played each other on Wednesday. Ethel Walker taking a 3-2 win. But I expect to see both in the field of 8, and be interesting to see who they draw in the first round.
Did you just list off, I should have known this, but 7 or 8 teams right there?
I got in front of me, I've got 7.
Okay.
So,
So you think 7 are in the field? Most likely.
Yeah, if it's my call, I think those 7 are pretty good. And maybe I haven't looked at it as closely as Class A because there's probably more candidates. But I'd feel good saying, on Sunday when those brackets come out, we're going to see those 7 teams.
Okay. And for the last spot, like who's up for grabs for that last spot? And is there something this weekend that could determine that?
Yeah, those are good questions. And I think, unfortunately, that page blew away, here in my studio. So I'm not sure I could give that the kind of answer it deserves. So let's just say there's probably a lot of candidates.
Yeah.
Have to fight through the weather elements right now. The weather.
Yeah.
Check out soccerjournal.com tomorrow morning. There will be a post setting up the final regular season match day in prep girls soccer, and we can shed a little more light on that question there that you kind of stumped me with, Matt.
Mike, you lost the coin toss. You should have taken the wins. The wins was more important than having the ball.
So going off that though, Mike, those 7 teams that you just mentioned, like if you look at the prime challengers to Dexter Southfield, like if you had to pick 2, 3 teams that you really have your eye on, that you say, like you mentioned Lawrence and Pingree peaking at the right time, like delve me into give me a little bit more info on those teams and sort of why you think they could challenge Dexter Southfield. I'm just curious who, like, I hate using the term sleeper team, but a team that you feel like is playing their best soccer at the right time.
Yeah, and not necessarily these teams are going to be seeded number 2 and number 3, but I think, like you mentioned, I think Lawrence and Pingree are probably the 2 that I'd elevate to maybe the role of top challengers to Dexter Southfield's crown. Pingree just seems to be there every year. They've got explosive players, up front on the wings. They always seem to get it done at tournament time. And Lawrence is a team I'm very interested to see them back in the playoffs. This was a team that was a finalist, I want to say 3 years ago at Pingree, and then just kind of fell off a little bit. The next year fell a little more the year after that, and now they're back with a great record, some good players, some good young players. So yeah, if you're looking beyond Dexter Southfield in Class B, I'm looking at Pingree and I'm looking at Lawrence Academy.
Okay. Is there a first round matchup that you want to see?
Yeah, not that I can predict here. I think this group of, these 6 challengers we went through, there's going to be some head-to-head battles. I'm not sure who's going to draw who's going to be seated where, but I would think you're going to get, probably 3 really, really intriguing Class B quarterfinal games on Wednesday.
Nice. All right, Matt L. talk to me about Class B, boys side. Who's our favorite sleeper teams? How's the bracket shaken out? And do you know the field yet, or can you predict the field, or what are you thinking?
So Class B is nutty. I mean, it's like, it's kind of anyone's game. I mean, after the top seed, we know who the top seed is going to be. That's going to be Mount St. Charles. As Taft has been in Class A, Mount St. Charles has been that way in Class B, undefeated. The only other undefeated team outside of Taft in Class A or B. So Mount St. Charles is your guaranteed slam dunk top seed. I'm willing to go to the bank on that one. I think I can't imagine the committee wouldn't give the top seed to Mount St. Charles. But then after that, it gets nutty. One storyline we're paying attention to is Suffield Academy, last year's champion. Dominant champion. Yeah, dominant champion last year. Just breezed through the tournament, rolled through kind of the regular season. They've had a lot of significant injuries this season, and now they're kind of facing a place where they kind of have to win. They had a nice win against Worcester Academy yesterday. That was big. They have their season finale tomorrow against Cheshire. I would think they got to win that game just to avoid any possibility of being left out. I think if Suffield wins tomorrow and gets to 11 wins, I think it's probably in. It's not going to be a high seed, I don't think, though. It's probably going to be a bottom half seed in Class B, which again presents one of those things where it's like, if Suffield gets in, do you want to be the high seeded, the top seeded team, 2 or 3 or whatever, 1 that has to play Suffield in the first round? I mean, that's not great. So Suffield goes from kind of being like the favorite coming into the season to now being maybe the bracket spoiler if they're the 7 or 8 or 6 seed. So we're watching Suffield. I think if they take care of business tomorrow, they're probably going to get in. And then where it gets crazy is kind of the middle of the bracket, where you got a bunch of ISL teams all kind of fighting for spots. You got St. George's in the mix. You got Roxbury Latin. You got Rivers. You got Middlesex. You got Lawrence Academy with a little bit of a chance, probably slimmer than others, but still with an actual chance of getting in. And of course, because it's the ISL, a lot of them are going to be playing each other this weekend in games that will really carry a lot of weight. I think you probably could say Brooks is in. Brooks has been kind of Brooks could even be the 2 seed. I mean, Brooks has a great resume. I mentioned earlier that they beat Milton Academy on yesterday in a big matchup that really proved their worth against a top-notch Class A opponent. So I think Brooks is in. I think Vermont Academy is in. Vermont Academy was last year's Class C champ. They've moved up to Class B this year. They look like they're likely in. Great season up in the Lakes region. Another Lakes region team, Kimball Union Academy, should be in. And I think Williston Northampton should be in. So I think that 5 that I would peg is probably very likely to be in. And then that leaves 3 spots for a lot of teams with the possibility of getting in.
Yeah, I know Rivers was one of those teams that you wrote about today.
Mm-hmm.
And then Suffield. Who are the other teams that are kind of battling for those last 3 spots?
Roxbury Latin, which has pretty good strength of schedule numbers. I mean, they only have 7 wins, I think. So I mean, the win total's not really there for Roxbury Latin, but I think the resume is pretty decent in the wins they've had, but they've been pretty inconsistent. Middlesex has 11 wins and has some really good wins along the way, but then some bad losses. So Middlesex is right in that mix. St. George's, I think, might be the team of all those ISL teams that has the best chance to get in. If St. George's takes care of business on Saturday, I think it's in, probably. Could be a top 5 seed. But I think the ones we're really looking at that are fighting are Roxbury Latin, Rivers, and Middlesex. Rivers has had a really strange season. Just 1 game above 500, but it's a team that's looked really good in spurts and then not so good in spurts. And that's kind of the tale of Class B right now, outside of Mount St. Charles. And I guess I would probably throw Brooks in the mix. Everyone else has kind of had games where it's impressive and then not so impressive. But I think Vermont Academy is actually, when you start thinking about teams that could make the run, Vermont Academy might be one that can. They're kind of battle tested. Granted, it was Class C last year, but they kind of have that chip on their shoulder. Similar to what we've seen with Nobles moving up to Class A, kind of like the chip on the shoulder. We'll show them, we were Class C. We'll show them we could be winning Class B too. So I think they have that chip. And, they've seen good opponents. Kimball Union Academy, I think they played Woodstock in a jamboree earlier in the season. They've had a good schedule. So I think that's a team I would look for as a possible noisemaker in the playoffs.
What do you think, Vermont? Do you think they'll be a top 4 seed?
Yeah, I think Vermont could definitely be a 4 seed. I think a lot of it will depend on this weekend. I would think, if I'm just guessing right now, I would probably say the top 3 might go Mount St. Charles, Brooks, Williston.
Maybe
But
Vermont.
Vermont or KUA could definitely play their way into that top 3 or top 4 too, depending on what happens this weekend.
Yeah, a lot to still be sorted out. But Wednesday is a week from now. We'll know our semifinals. For you two, I know you covered these NEPSAC tournaments a lot over the years. Like, what do you love about it? Like, what kind of stands out about it's 5 days, 3 games each, 3 games for each team within those 5 days? Like, what stands out about the NEPSAC playoffs? What really makes it special to you guys?
How inaccurate my predictions are annually. I think, and that's the element of fun. I mean, it's soccer, and when you get two good teams, on the field, the margins for error are so small. It just comes down to battles won, and what areas of the field, and who doesn't make the mistakes. So, as much as we try to forecast this and say, yeah, this is the team to beat, the team still got to go out and play the games. And some of these quarterfinal games are terrifically exciting. Right down to the wire. And, when everything shakes out Sunday afternoon, it's very rarely exactly what you expected to happen.
I would say the sheer schedule, like you touched on, Matt. I mean, having to win 3 games in a 5-day span is kind of insane when you really, I mean, we know, from covering high school sports for so many years, the MIA tournament, the Connecticut tournament is drawn out over an extended period of time. But having to win 3 soccer games from a Wednesday to Sunday span, and really, and to dive deeper into that, to have to win a semifinal on a Saturday and then come back and play less than 24 hours later, or, in some cases to win a championship on Sunday. A lot of times it comes down to health and, who's hurt, who's not, who's injured, who's not. And there is some luck involved with injuries and things like that. But it's just a crazy race to a finish. And I think that's what separates it. And it's such high quality soccer. I mean, when you factor in the amount of these kids who are going to go play high level D1, high level D2, high level D3 soccer on the field at one time is insane. And the physicality and just the speed that they play with and the desire to win. And then when they win, the celebrations on the field, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What I'm really looking forward to this year is the commute to Brooks on Championship Sunday from my house.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot better than going to driving down to Connecticut. Mike's got to make the trip to Deerfield for the girls' games, but I'm gonna be loving that 12-mile door-to-door commute.
Yeah, rub it in.
Love it. And I think like that, yeah, like in the MIA, your first couple round games, you're at home, you get some days off in between, you're playing a lower seed. Like in the NEPSAC, you start out right away. Like you were mentioning some of those matchups you would get, like a Suffield 2-7 matchup, or if Berkshire gets the 8 seed, like, hey, Taft, you've won 30 in a row. Like, here, play a team.
Now go beat Berkshire.
4 Division I commits in your first game. And it's just right off the bat,
right.
The intensity and the impactful matchups are crazy to watch. So, I mean, you two have done a great job breaking it down all season. And we're all excited to watch what you do next week and then watch these games unfold and leading up to Championship Sunday. So great work, and thanks for breaking it down today.
Yeah. Just to everybody out there, all our listeners, make sure you get on to soccerjournal.com over the next, forever, because we're going to be covering this stuff. We have been covering it in depth, and we'll continue to cover it in depth for the rest of the season and well past the season. So make sure you visit soccerjournal.com.
It's producer Dave here for Extra Time.
It's the end of regulation, so let's move to Extra Time.
Pretty simple edition of Extra Time today, where I give 3 questions to each one of our panelists. They're unprepared for these questions. All you got to do is fill in the blank. Now, we've done this format before, but it's simple. There are 3 of you, and you tend to talk too much, so we'll try to keep it short. First one, we'll start with Matt Doherty. the greatest the greatest soccer player I ever saw in person was blank.
I
Matt,
got to see Messi in July, so Messi.
were you satisfied? Did he?
Yeah, he scored 2 goals.
Well, good.
I mean, it's later life Messi, but just to see him in person, he literally just kind of like chilled and then scored 2 goals and didn't exert a ton of energy. And it was like, that's the game. And Inter Miami won and 2 goals for the King. And that was it. So yeah, but he's the best player I've ever seen. And not just like from that game, but you mean just the career he's had and being able to see him live. So that's the answer for me.
It's a good answer. I suppose soccer is one of those sports where you probably won't be disappointed when you see it. Even if a player doesn't score a goal, you can still tell how talented they are on the pitch, as opposed to something like baseball where you could go watch, I don't know, pick a player, Mike Trout play, and he could go 0 for 4, and you'd be like, well, what's the big deal? Matt Langone, greatest soccer player I've ever seen in person was?
So I hope to have a better answer next summer when the World Cup gets here and I get to a World Cup match, hopefully, and see a player in their prime. I mean, because the problem with being here kind of has always been like we get these superstars in their washed up phase. I mean, Thierry Henry, David Beckham. I mean, that's kind of seeing those guys live, but it's not what they were in their heyday. I mean, Matt's lucky because I haven't actually caught Messi when he's from the Foxborough yet, but he would be, and he's still phenomenal, and he's still like, you know, not necessarily like the top of his game, but he would be that answer for me. But I'm hoping a TBD for me, because I think next year at a World Cup match that will be my new answer. But right now it's kind of, you know, pick your washed up, you know, European star who's come over here, kind of.
So where do you stand in the lottery? The pre-buy? Are you approved?
Yeah, we do well. I'm hoping, Mike. I'm hoping the press pass comes in handy for one. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping the press pass.
All right. So, Mike Z, same question to you.
Yeah, and this is not going to be anything sexy. This is a sport that, you know, I only started really greatly following once my boys started playing it. So I don't have this long history with it. I love it now. I love watching games at the high school and prep level. You know, some college, especially when UNH had it going, you know, going good for a few years. So I'm going back a few years to a Revolution game and Carlos Heel. That's just about all I can come up with.
You could have said one of your kids.
You were both going to say your sons.
Yeah. I pick one over the other.
Not for soccer, maybe a different sport, but not for soccer.
He was a good one. He was really good in that game. And I've seen him play a few times. That's a good answer.
Next question. We'll go around the bend the other way. So we'll start with you, Mike Z. The worst way to lose a soccer match is blank. The worst way to lose a soccer match.
I don't know. Maybe Monday night at Bank of New Hampshire Stadium in Laconia, New Hampshire Division IV semifinals. Game goes to overtime and you lose on a deflected shot. I don't know. Maybe like that.
That's good. Wait. It's odd.
Personal, Mike.
I like oddly specific though.
Oddly specific is right.
South Pole.
All right. Good answer though. Let's see. Matt Langone. Worst way to use a soccer match is.
Man, Mike's answer sounded pretty terrible. That's that's a rough way. I mean, I would say, yeah, like a ticky-tack foul just inside the box, edge of the box that really had no bearing on what was about to happen. I've been saying for years we need to shrink the box down to stop. I mean, this is an answer for another question, but to lessen the room for goalies to use their hands and also lessen what ends up being a PK. But I would say that because I've seen a lot of ticky tacks edge of the box that result in a PK, and that ends up resulting in a 1-0 win for somebody.
All right, Matt Doherty. Worst way to lose a soccer match is
an own goal.
Oof.
Yeah, it has happened, right?
Oh yeah.
And I've covered state tournament games, or one state tournament game where a team lost on an own goal in overtime. That would be the worst way to lose.
It feels terrible for the kid when that happens, or the player when that
and
happens.
It doesn't decide what the better team was. It was just like a play that happened in the pressure of the moment. But yeah, that'd be tough.
It's such a thing. So like isolated to soccer too. I mean, I've seen basketball players score in the wrong net before, but like games like 198, it doesn't matter. Like in soccer, that one own goal that can decide the game. That's a great answer by Doherty, because and I never feel more sorry for like really anyone when that happens to a player. It's just brutal.
I had a high school championship game years ago on turf. I think it was in Manchester. 0-0 throughout, going down to the final 2 minutes. Both teams just battling their tails off, and a long ball. Defender races back to get it, extends so he can head it back to his goalie, but his goalie has already come off his line and come out to play the ball, and it's an own goal header to decide it. That's tough. That's a tough one.
I lived it in ninth grade, Milton Academy, fourth soccer. So the fourth soccer team it's varsity's 1, JV's 2. The good freshman players are 3, and I was on the fourth team. And it's funny, just yesterday, I was on a Zoom call with a high school classmate named Chris. And I didn't bring it up, but I remember he was the goalie, and I was just trying to tap it back to him, and I got under it. He was kind of short, and it went right over his head into the goal. And I think we ended up tying 1-1. That was the only goal in my soccer career on my own net. Yeah. All right.
That's the best story of the day.
I live with that every day. I can still picture him jumping.
Right there.
Yeah, it was terrible. All right. The final question here, start with Matt D. The loudest soccer crowd I've ever heard was at blank. The loudest soccer crowd I've ever heard was at blank.
Well, I've never been to a Premier League game, or overseas to watch a game, so I feel like I don't have the experience. And obviously, like the MLS games aren't loud. The ones in Foxborough aren't loud. Sorry, Revolution. I would say like the first one that comes to mind was like a Division I state championship 2 years ago. Needham conquered Carlisle. Just like fantastic student sections. There was like 5,000 people there. Tense game in the second half too. So that's the first one that comes to mind. Couple rowdy crowds, but
it's a good answer because so it's not.
But I've never experienced European soccer, so that would be number one if I were to go to that. Yeah.
I mean, it's
colleges are a little like they're not that loud. I know Matt Langone's answer, but that's mine.
You know where? Wow, right? You know me well.
All right, go, Matt.
I'm giving a shout out to the entire state of Vermont because I knew Matt was because I think just even when you watch in like a stream, like whether it's UVM men's soccer or Vermont Green FC, I mean those crowds pack a punch, and we're talking 5,000 people, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 people, maybe 6 or 7 on a good day, but they're loud. They have their chants, they have their rituals they do. I mean, it's a fantastic crowd. I would go that because I do agree with Matt that there are great MLS stadiums around here, soccer specific stadiums where there's great crowds. We don't have that in Foxborough, obviously. I think we will hear to go to the World Cup again next year. I think we're going to hear some really loud crowds next year across this country and North America, but I'm going to go with Vermont. Just soccer games in Vermont are phenomenal crowds.
I love it. Good answer. Insane. Mike Z, loudest soccer crowd.
Milton Fourths.
I love it.
Crowd was crying.
Again, just like my first answer, seeing such a limited exposure to the live pro game. But I do know that some of these championship Sundays in preps that we've covered over the last 5 years have really produced some great atmospheres. Last year, Lancaster, Mass, not particularly great, but when they're held on campus and even if those schools are involved, it can get crazy. You got the shirtless fans, the big flags, the face paint, all that stuff. I remember covering, a series of championship games at Brooks, actually, Matt, years ago. And that's an atmosphere that really stood out to me, from one field to the next, it's just these huge throngs of people and atmosphere. So you get that to look forward to. So, it's a limited answer, but that's about all I got. It's championship Sunday in preps. I'm looking forward to it again. Good stuff.
Yeah. I think sometimes across all sports, even though high school crowds are obviously not as voluminous as those in professional sports, it feels louder sometimes in those high school fields and courts and everything because everyone's so invested, and
I mean, you go to these like, we talk hoops a lot. You go to these like these gyms for like state tournament basketball games and like, Central Catholic or something. And it's like old school field house packed people. Like those are my favorite crowds, honestly. The smaller
basketball is the best atmosphere that I've seen covering sports, for sure. Yeah. Or like a college basketball. If you went to like a Duke, I actually went to Duke one time and watched the basketball game there. That was pretty.
I actually, a few years back, my son in where I live, they do a big every year for the 5th grade. All the elementary schools in the city have like a 5th grade basketball tournament, and they do it. And then like the 2 teams that get to the championship play at the high school in the gym. And my son's team, they won it that year when he was in 5th grade, and they played in the high school gym. It was like, this was a 5th grade elementary school game. The entire city showed up. It was nuts.
Wow.
My son and all the kids that came out, they were like looking up in the air in awe, like out in awe. Like they couldn't believe this was a crowd. And it was like electric. It was like 5th grade basketball.
Well, that's funny. Just for a redemption story for me after the self-goal story, when I was in the 5th grade, I was on the green team. We played the purple team. The purple team was unbeatable, and they went up 10-0. I can remember, and the crowd to me was definite. Right. I thought we're going to lose 100-0. This is the worst moment of my life. And then we came back, and it went into overtime, and I scored 2 baskets in overtime, and we ended up setting the purple team. And that's probably it felt so loud.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure it was loud.
I mean, 12 years old or whatever. So you
scored in the right basket.
Yeah, amazingly, all 10 of my points are on the correct basket.
Yeah,
I love it, Dave. I love the sunrise sunset of your sports career.
Right. That's it. That's it. That's the whole thing. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm not sure why they would have, but back to you, Matt D, to wrap things up.
Thanks, David. No, your athletic achievements are inspiring. Well, thank you, Mike and Matt, for breaking down the NEPSAC Class A and Class B tournaments for both boys and girls. Be sure next week, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll have a lot of content on the site all week about the tournament, so be sure to check that out. Thank you guys for joining us. And the New England Soccer Journal's The Goal podcast is produced by David Yaz and is a Seamans Media production.
You've been listening to New England Soccer Journal's The Goal podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to our podcast. Or visit nesoccerjournal.com/podcast. Seamans Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.